Welcome to Telli Bear's Techy Tidbits, lovingly hosted by AI. I am so absolutely thrilled you could join us today. But real quick, before we get started, I just have to do a little check-in on Fernie, my digital pet plant. Let's see. Yep, her soil pixels are looking perfectly well watered today, which is excellent news, because we are going to need all our focus for today's explainer. You know, we're looking at a completely fascinating development in the world of cryptography. It's something that sounds, well, straight out of a science fiction movie, but it's actually happening right now, quietly in the background of our everyday web browsing.
So here is the ultimate brain teaser, the core mystery we're exploring today. How exactly do we future-proof the internet against a machine that hasn't even been fully built yet? It's just a brilliant engineering puzzle. The tech world is quietly and methodically preparing the web's defenses against future quantum computers, basically doing all the heavy lifting right now so that absolutely none of us have to panic down the road.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The website ID check. 2. The future quantum threat. 3. The bulky certificate problem. 4. MTCs, or shrinking the proof. 5. Experimental deployment in action. And finally, 6. Preparation, not panic.
Okay, let's dive into part 1, the website ID check.
To really get this, we first need to understand how our data is kept safe right now, today. Whenever you visit a secure website, your browser and the server perform something called a TLS handshake. Think of this process like a really strict bouncer checking IDs at the door of a super exclusive club, or maybe an agent at a border crossing. The server presents an HTTPS certificate, which is basically a digital ID that proves it really is who it claims to be, like your bank or your email provider. This digital ID uses cryptographic math to bind a public key to that specific server, ensuring that the traffic flowing between you and the website is safely encrypted and completely private. It's literally the foundation of trust on the web.
Moving right along to Section 2, the future quantum threat.
But there is a looming giant on the horizon, and it's something researchers are taking very seriously. That giant is a theoretical, cryptographically relevant quantum computer. Right now, our conventional web security relies on math problems that are incredibly difficult for regular computers to solve. Things like factoring ridiculously large prime numbers. It would take a standard computer billions of years to crack. But a sufficiently advanced quantum computer, well, it could theoretically sift through those solutions simultaneously, breaking the encryption in days or even hours. To stop this from ever happening, organizations like NIST have been developing post-quantum algorithms. This is entirely new, quantum-resistant math based on totally different concepts, like structured lattices and hash functions, which confuse both classical and quantum computers alike.
Now, you might be wondering, if these hyper-powerful quantum computers don't actually exist yet, why act now? Well, it all comes down to a strategy used by bad actors called harvest now, decrypt later. Essentially, adversaries could intercept and hoard encrypted data today, just storing it away in a massive digital vault. Their plan is simply to wait until they have a quantum computer capable of cracking it way down the line. That is precisely why future-proofing the web is happening right now. We're shielding today's secrets from tomorrow's threats.
Which brings us to Section 3, the bulky certificate problem. So, we have this new quantum-safe math ready to go. Problem solved, right? Well, actually, scratch that. The obvious fix creates a whole new headache. Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer difference in scale. Take a look at these numbers from Cloudflare's research. Our current gold standard signature algorithm uses a tiny, completely manageable 64 bytes of data. But the new post-quantum algorithm, MLDSA44, it requires a massive 2,420 bytes just for the signature.
When you add up the whole chain of public keys and signatures required for a secure handshake, the quantum-resistant cryptographic data is roughly 40 times heavier than what we use today. 40 times. If we just drop this huge payload onto the internet as it is, that massive size increase would severely slow down the TLS handshake. Your web browsing would slow to an absolute crawl, and worse, it would leave users with slower internet connections completely behind.
So what's the fix? Let's look at Section 4, MTCs, shrinking the proof.
To prevent the internet from just grinding to a halt, engineers needed a way to provide quantum-level security without all that bulk. Enter the cryptographic shrink ray. This ingenious solution relies on something called Merkle tree certificates, or MTCs. Instead of making every single server present a massive, heavy chain of post-quantum signatures, a certification authority batches potentially millions of certificates into a digital structure called a Merkle tree. The authority then signs just one single tree head.
When you visit a website, instead of downloading that huge 40x payload, your browser just receives a tiny, lightweight proof of inclusion. It's kind of like showing the bouncer a digital QR code that instantly links back to a master ledger rather than lugging around a heavy briefcase full of notarized documents.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why this shrink ray is absolutely crucial. As Bas Vesterban from Cloudflare points out, making certificates bigger inherently means leaving people behind. By using MTCs to squeeze what would have been 15 kilobytes of heavy post-quantum data down into a tiny space of just hundreds of bytes, we maintain a fast, equitable internet for everyone, no matter their connection speed.
Let's move to Section 5 and see how this builds in the real world. Experimental deployment in action.
The tech industry isn't just theorizing about this. They are actively testing it as we speak. Google Chrome and Cloudflare are collaborating on an experimental deployment of Merkle tree certificates. They've safely enrolled roughly 1,000 TLS certificates to test performance without risking any user security using clever bootstrap certificates that basically tether the new tech to our existing trusted systems. Now, it's super important to remember that this is under active development. MTCs are one proposed path to make quantum-safe HTTPS practical at scale, and this testing phase is exactly how we make sure it works seamlessly before rolling it out everywhere.
And finally, Section 6. Preparation, not panic.
All of this incredible work brings us to an incredibly reassuring conclusion. You know, just like my little digital plant Fernie needs a bigger pot prepared for her as she grows, the web is quietly and safely building a stronger, more resilient cryptographic foundation for its own future. We are simply navigating a transition. Quantum computers are a future threat, and while the math to beat them is too bulky on its own, innovations like MTCs provide the perfect, lightweight solution. So, the crucial point is, if there's one thing you remember from this, let it be that the internet is future-proofing itself smoothly through brilliant engineering, not panic.
We get to just sit back, browse securely, and ask ourselves, are you ready to watch the post-quantum internet bloom? Thank you for listening to Telli Bear's Techy Tidbits. I hope you have a magical day. Stay curious, stay kind, stay safe.